23rd, 2013. This is Spingola Speaks, and this is Deanna Spingola. I'm coming to you from the cold suburbs of Chicago. Thanks for joining me today on RBN for people who can handle the truth. RBN's website is republicbroadcasting.org. To see the guest lineup and relevant links for this program, please visit Spingola.com. My guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor. She is the author of Through Innocent Eyes, The Chosen Girls of the Hitler Youth. Welcome to the program, Cynthia.
Thank you very much for having me on your show, Deanna. I appreciate it very much.
Well, we appreciate having you and are very excited about what you have to share with us, because I think that the wonderful diary that you found that belonged to your mother, I really look forward to having you talk about this. You found this diary. Your mother was sick at the time, and It had been kind of hidden away, probably not deliberately, but just kind of away from everybody's sight for 50 years.
Exactly.
And so go ahead. What inspired you to take this diary and then use it to write a book?
I loved my mother very much because she taught me certain morals and principles and values growing up as a child. The journal that she wrote was written in 1941 when she was in a camp called Landjahr Lager, Sandor, but the English translation is Country Service Camp, and it talks about the entire time she was in Landjahr Lager, Sandor.
Wow. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor, the author of Through Innocent Eyes, The Chosen Girls of the Hitler Youth. And you were in the process of telling us about your mother, that she was very close to perishing from bone cancer. Then how did you approach your mother?
And when I was looking at the pictures, there was a picture of a house and girls standing by the flags in their uniforms, and I was going through the pictures, and I said, I knew my mom wrote this book, but where was this house, and when was it written? And so I brought this treasure with me to the hospital. I had it hidden behind my back, and I slowly walked in, and she was, just in the bed, relaxing, and I kissed her on the forehead and pulled the book out from behind my back, and I said, Mom, look what I found. And she said, oh, my God, where did you find this? And I told her I was, cleaning up her room and everything. And I said, well, what is it all about? Do you know what's in here? Can you read it? And I handed her the book. And I could see her whole disposition change. And she sat up taller in bed, and she opened the journal and started looking through it. And it seemed like she was composing her thoughts. And then she said, of course I can read it. I wrote it. I was in the Hitler Youth.
And this is the first time that you had ever heard her say this?
That was the very first time she ever said anything to me about her being in the Hitler Youth. And it was 23 years ago that I found the journal, and I was familiar with the Hitler Youth, and I did not know anything at that time about them or what they did. My mom said she was in the Hitler Youth. I was in total shock, and I couldn't even believe what she was saying to me, and a million questions started going through my mind, and I was asking her... Did you have
some preconceived notions about Germany before you found this diary?
I didn't know that much about the Hitler Youth, but I only heard things over time about what my mother said here and there. Remember, when she was a little girl, before World War II, there was absolute poverty. They had no food. They were thrown out of their farm. They had no money. They were homeless. And when Hitler came in, all of a sudden, they had money. They had a new farmhouse, and they had a brand new car, food on the table, and clothes to wear. My mother liked what the government had done and provided for the family, and helped to get them out of their depressed conditions and bring them up into a middle-class society. She only spoke about the good things that he had done for the country and how he cared for his people.
Sure.
Because inside the book, I have pictures from when my mom was very, very young, going to school, and even before that with her mother and father, their pictures. And the pictures are in a chronological order as she progresses through the BDM and gets married and comes to America. And these are all original pictures from when she was in the Landjahr Lager camp in 1941.
How old was she when she went to the camp?
She was 14 years old.
Did she volunteer? How did she happen to get picked or chosen? Or
from what she remembered was that her mother, Josepha, received a letter from the Reichsministry of Education, Culture, and Science indicating that she had superb qualities of becoming an obedient, loyal, disciplined German girl. She was very outstanding in her achievements, that she was chosen because the Reich at that time only wanted very strong, healthy, disciplined girls to be part of the Landjahr program.
Okay. Now, a lot of people think that the Hitler Youth was designed to grasp control of these children away from their parents so that they could train them into basically obedient subjects of the German Reich.
In the introduction, I go into detail as to how the Hitler Youth came about and the Bund Deutsche Mädel, in addition to how Landjahr Lager started. Now, back in 1896, there was a movement it was the German Youth Movement, which started in the Weimar Republic in 1896 as a cultural and educational movement. From there, over, I think, a 27-year period, it evolved into the Hitler Youth. The whole thing was, when you look at it, the children, it's to educate the children and to become one with the land, to learn, to work with the community, and to teach them to grow up to be moral citizens for their country.
So they probably didn't teach them how to put prophylactics on bananas and that kind of thing.
No.
All righty, I think we'll go to a break with that, okay?
Okay, that sounds great.
Back. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor, the author of Through Innocent Eyes, The Chosen Girls of the Hitler Youth. And so this was really quite an accomplishment for your mother to have been chosen for this program so that she could be a better citizen, a better person. And do you attribute some of her characteristics that you were familiar with to the fact that she had participated in this program?
Oh my God, my mother and was extremely supportive of me, and she was a great inspiration. And the very first thing I remember her telling me when I was a little girl was she always said, "Cynthia, you have a beautiful body." Or she always said, "Cindy, you can do anything you put your mind to doing, anything." The other things she had mentioned to me were, don't put off until tomorrow the things you can get done today. She was a driving force. It was my mother who really instilled her strong work ethics inside of me, because today I've accomplished so much in my life. So I've gone to school and graduated with a degree in business and a minor in human development. I've traveled. I'm a Travel Channel Academy student. I have my own video production studio inside my house, my own landscaping business, my own home renovation business, and the list can go on, And I guess it's because I'm not married and I have no kids that I can do this, I just have my 2 little chihuahuas, When I found her journal, and when she sat with me and read her entire journal to me and explained everything to me, okay? When we finished reading the book, I said to myself at that time, this would be a great book. And I'm going to call it Through Innocent Eyes. And she's like, well, you better not show it to anybody because they're going to kill you. And I'm like, well, all right, then, let's talk more about it. And
so what did she mean by that? Don't show it to anyone because they would kill you.
She never explained it, but I think maybe at that time she was ashamed to talk about it until she was on her deathbed.
Now, what year was this? When did she die?
She died in 1989.
Okay. Let's see. She passed away in 89, and that was just about the time there was a lot of talk about the Holocaust and a lot of talk about many, many things. So perhaps your mother may have been fearful of you being proud of this book, and she may have been afraid for you. Now, when did your mother leave Germany?
My mother married my father. He was an American soldier. And from the documents that I have, they came over in 1957 on the SS United States in July.
Okay. Now, right after the war, the American occupiers really did not want the soldiers to interact with the Germans or the Austrians. They simply said stay away from them. But your father apparently was attracted to your mother. Did she mention in what kind of a situation she was in? I know that there was insufficient food, deliberately so. The occupation forces did not want to treat the Austrians or the Germans very well, and they deliberately kept them on starvation diets.
Oh, from what my family told me, it was like 2 or 3 years after the war, they literally had no food. It was absolute chaos. My father, since he was an American soldier, he was able to go into the quartermaster's house, the barracks, and he, from one of the stories that I was told, my mom became a woman from poverty, and now here all of a sudden she's wearing very nice suits. She's wearing pantyhose for the first time. Excuse me, and wearing makeup. And she had dyed her hair from black to being blonde. Now, my father was blonde hair, blue-eyed, and he emulated, I guess, in my mom's eyes, the Aryan race. And here was my father who he fell in love with my mom instantly when they met, and he provided so much for my mother. But I know my dad was there for the family.
Well, he obviously was a very decent human being in order to do this, to provide food for a starving family, literally.
Yes.
And then he stayed in Austria after the war, and apparently he learned the language.
He spoke a broken German, and my mother spoke a broken English. And when my dad proposed to my mother, my aunt and my uncle were there, and my mom turned to her brother and said, "What did he just say?" And they started laughing and said, Robert just proposed to you. And she said, "Yes, of course I will marry you." So she didn't even know he proposed to her.
Oh, bless her heart. Oh,
yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
And so your father was able to get work rebuilding the country or rebuilding, infrastructure there in Linz?
Yes, he was in the Army Corps of Engineers.
Oh, okay.
And his background was in building and demolition and making sure that his troop, when he landed in France, he had to fight the German soldiers and make sure that the tanks can all get through into Linz, because that's where they needed to be at the Niblinger Bridge there, which was the checkpoint Charlie between the Americans and the Russians.
All right, so what kinds of things did she learn in the Hitler Youth and was she proud to be part of that organization?
My mother was very, very proud to be a part of the BDM. I mean, there were so many things that my mom had learned since she was even 10 years old, because they started teaching the girls practical skills. And so that when my mom did go into Landjahr, she had the required skills necessary, because when she was 14 in Landjahr, she learned the overall management of the household, including the finances, and how much food everyone ate, and how much did it cost to feed everyone. They were even paid when they went to go out and work with the farmers, and they were learning how to tend to the fields and the crops, or grow their own garden, or work with the butcher in slaughtering the pigs. They were also being taught their folklore with the different rituals of the maypole or Walpurgis night. and that was all coupled in with their rituals and their traditions. And every month, the girls learned 10 new songs to sing. So you figure it out, by the time she was in Landjahr, they already knew a couple of hundred songs.
And the girls actually were taught responsibility to take care of themselves. This instilled confidence, didn't it?
Yeah, they were being taught self-worth, self-confidence, self-discipline. They were being taught how to take care of their bodies. They were being taught how to be dignified women. And they were being taught high moral values and principles to build their character, so that when they became women, they were self-sufficient, they knew how to raise a family or go into a chosen vocation, and they were being taught the skills necessary to, be moral citizens for their state, so that they wouldn't be a burden on the state. Germany at that time did not want a social welfare program. They didn't want an entitlement program. They empowered the people, all the people, through the Volksgemeinschaft ideology that a country is only as strong as their people are.
What a concept.
Oh, isn't that incredible? And so growing up in Greenwich, okay, and growing up in Greenwich as a little kid, the area where I lived in, every neighbor helped each other. And if someone was sick, my mom would go over there, or if someone would die, my mom would go over there and comfort them and help them and be with them. So there was a real sense of camaraderie, a group of neighbors coming together and working together to help each other. It was like a little village that we had.
Now, was your mother sort of the center of this? Did she encourage that kind of behavior? Were there people in Greenwich that were from Germany, or do you think that it might be her experience in the Hitler Youth that made her the kind of a core of activity when she came over to this country?
That's a very good question, because now looking back, and the 23 years that has taken me to research for this book, I think she was the central nucleus, not only within the family structure, she was also the center nucleus within our neighborhood, because everybody knew my mom, everybody loved my mother, and if she needed anything, everybody was there for her. I think from what she learned being in the Hitler Youth and in the BDM and in Landjahr Lager, she brought that over, her values, she brought that over to the United States, and it kind of naturally projected onto the people in the neighborhood. And I tell you, when my mother passed away, I had her cremated and buried in Austria. I was standing in the front pew of the church. It was a very old, 1,000-year-old church, and when I turned around, it was standing room only. I asked my aunt, "Who are these people?" And my aunt said, everyone, there was over 350 people at my mother's funeral. There was a 12-piece brass band that played. And my aunt told me that everybody that showed up from Kleinsell, her hometown, came to pay their last respects because they remembered my mother and how she was as a person. And even today, I've met up with people on Facebook in Kleinsell, and they're emailing me saying, "My grandmother remembers your mother. They were best friends."
So your mother learned all of this in the Hitler Youth. And I want to revisit the idea that Austria, under Germany, or as, after they annexed Austria in 1938, that they wanted everybody to be self-sufficient.
Exactly.
And so let's pick that up on the other side of the break. This is really important.
Okay.
Be right back. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor, the author of Through Innocent Eyes, The Chosen Girls of the Hitler Youth. We were going to be talking, before we went to the break, about the idea of socialism. People think that socialism is where the government comes in and they take care of you. So, kind of like what we have here.
I wish someone would come in and take care of me.
I don't.
I've been working so long. I'm getting tired of working.
I'm sorry. You can take care of yourself.
Oh yeah, I have been for 40-some odd years. I'm getting tired.
And you're saying that Germany wanted everyone to be self-sufficient, to take care of themselves, that if you have strong families and strong people, you're going to have a strong country. And so you could say opposite that, if you want to have a weak country, weak morals, weak principles, weak everything, a dependent population dependent on somebody else to take care of them, like we have here in America, then let's see, where was I going with this?
Oh, okay. Well, can I interject here for a moment, please?
Please.
Okay. My father always said, Cindy, you can always pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Do not depend upon anybody else. At a very, very young age, I had to learn how to make my bed. I had to learn how to clean up my room. I had to wash the dishes, vacuum, dust, normal things, okay? If you want your kids to be out of the door when they're 18, they need the knowledge now to prepare them. I left my parents' house when I was 17 years old. I already graduated from school. I had my own car, and I had my own apartment and a job. At 17, I was totally self-sufficient.
Wow.
I mean,
all right.
It's not hard. It's not rocket science.
We do have to go to our 60-second top-of-the-hour break, and we'll be right back after station ID. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and this is the second hour of Spingola Speaks. Our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor, Sandor. She is the author of Through Innocent Eyes, The Chosen Girls of the Hitler Youth. I just think this whole concept of being strong individuals, being able to build a strong country, and that is exactly what Germany was attempting to do in this program. They were not attempting to take over and control children. They were teaching children to be good, strong adults, correct?
Exactly. Now, my research is in Landjahr Lager based on my mother's journal and from my family stories. But the National Socialistic upbringing trains the Landjahr girls to build their moral character and to learn to be in service. I mean, they were educated to become responsible German women. They had to be physically fit and good character standing and ready to serve and help the people. They were empowered by their camp leaders because they were taught how to build their self-confidence, how to build their self-esteem and their self-worth. And my mother told me before she passed away when we were talking about the book that she said she felt like she was a very valuable member of society and that she had a sense of purpose by being in the Hitler Youth because the government paid for these children to go to the Landjahr Lager camps and to learn. And in the camp, there were 3 directors. There was Fraulein Dieter, and she was 21 years old, and she held the highest position as the troop leader. And she instilled very high expectations of the girls to perform their duties, I mean, using paramilitary-like disciplinary measures to train the girls. And then Fräulein Albrecht is the Lagerführerin, which is the camp leader. And her job was to motivate and inspire the girls to learn willingly and to perform their duties because Fräulein Albrecht instilled a certain code of moral ethics. And lastly, there was 19-year-old Fräulein Gruber, who was the economic assistant leader, and she oversaw the management of the lager, and she taught the girls how to manage the home, including the finances. And I know that because I met and spoke with the last 4 surviving members of this Landjahr Camp Seidorf. They kept their own journals, And so I was able to correspond back and forth with them to get more detailed information, okay,
Right.
because all this was under the direction of the Reichsministry for Science, Education, and Culture. In other words, the government cared about their children because they wanted to teach them how to be moral citizens for their country.
All righty. We do have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor. Life got better in Austria as soon as Germany annexed Austria, correct?
Yes, because even my mother told me once when her mother, Josefa, received the Mother Cross, and she received 1,000 Reichsmarks, and that's time to buy a car, get a brand new washing machine, buy clothes for the kids, and put food on the table. They were very happy after Austria was annexed into Germany. Landjahr was not an original concept in 1941. The Landjahr began during the Weimar Republic as a labor market policy for all young people under the term state aid. And in March of 1934, the participation became mandatory for all the boys throughout Germany to go into the national political training in the Landjahr program. And it replaced the ninth-year academic curriculum of the schools, and it sheltered them from the parental guidance and of the religious services. But once when the Second World War started, the boys had to leave and go into the war, and the girls were then replacing them in the Landjahr service.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I also want to dispel the myth that the girls in the BDM were only raised to breed as many children as possible and to stay home in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant. You know, I want to remove the negative, the stigma from the 3K myth. You know, the Kirche, the church, and the children, because I want my mother's life story to be a model for the other Austrian and German descendants to openly communicate their heritage onto their children before this entire generation is completely gone.
Right.
You know, I think it's very important that we see another viewpoint of someone who was right there in the middle and who witnessed it firsthand for herself. I mean, people are emailing me and or calling me, and they're sharing with me their stories that they're questioning their parents or their grandparents about the time of them being in the Hitler Youth. And so I want people now to know that there is no reason for them to feel ashamed about their time of growing up in Germany or Austria during World War II.
All righty. Why don't we take another call?
Okay.
Let's take Jerry in Chicago. Jerry, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Deanna, and you got a great guest on today. And, you know, it just brought back some memories. I used to date a girl from Germany back in 89 and 90, and she'd come over here for 6 months at a time and then go back to Germany for 6 months. This brings back old memories because this is how she talked about her mother being in the Hitler Youth Corps and how much her mother loved it, how good Hitler was to the children, and that's kind of opposite of what history has said about Hitler. That's all I wanted to say.
Indeed. All righty. We will be right back after a word from our sponsors. All righty. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor. And you were talking about the 3 Ks. The kitchen, the children, and the church. I guess that would be Kirche.
The Kirche, the Küche, and the Kinder.
The Kinder. Okay.
The 3 Ks. Well, yeah, and you know that there were practical guidelines that they became knowledgeable in. They had an understanding that they hold, that the children hold the future of their country within their own hands, because they were taught that everyone had a duty and a responsibility to their lager, to their villages, and to the state.
Mm-hmm.
Because they knew that when they worked, when they helped, when they were in camaraderie and fellowship, they were working not only to learn for themselves, but they were working together as an entire nation to raising it higher for the people of their fatherland. And Landjahr was there to serve the farmers because they knew that without their farmers, they had no food. They wanted to be self-disciplined, and they wanted to be self-sustaining. And they were prepared. The children were being taught the basic skills necessary to prepare them and to give them the foundation so that when they did marry, because, I mean, remember back then they married when they were 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. They were mature enough to step into the goal of either taking a vocation, a job, or being able to manage and run a household.
Right. Now, this thing about farming, it was one of the important factors on the NSDAP program. They wanted to give the people who were farming the best education that they could. They wanted to have small farms. They did not turn their farms to become factory farms.
They were not producing genetically modified food, number one. Number two, they were producing food for their people. And not too many people know that during the time of the Third Reich, the government told the farmers that their debts are all cleared. They didn't have the financial burden or having to pay back a mortgage or pay off the loan for their farm equipment. We want you to concentrate on growing the food, organic, good food for our people because we want our people healthy. It all came together.
And placed the farmer in charge of his land and did not encumber them, as you say, with mortgages and with all of this debt, correct?
It's absolutely correct because the farmers were very, very important. When you read in the book about how they revered their farmers and the mothers of the farmers' wives, because they were providing the food, not only to the vegetables, the livestock, the beef, cattle, pigs, chickens.
Most of the independent farmers in this country have been taken over by these big corporations, and
Yes.
and now they're producing garbage for us to eat, and we suffer from all kinds of diseases and physical, well, a lot of physical problems.
Well, the ailments that come from it because the food's all genetically modified. Corn is not real anymore. It's fake corn. You're
Right.
not getting the nutrients. I mean, look at the people 70 years ago and look how much the good shape they were in. When you go into YouTube and you look at the BDM girls and the Belief in Beauty Society, any of the films, you do not see obese children at 4 years old who should be weighing, maybe 90 pounds or something. They're not 200 pounds. They didn't have Cheetos and Doritos to eat. They ate more fruits and vegetables and healthy. When I go to Europe even now and eat the meat, it tastes so good in the food. And
Indeed.
because it's not, as my mother said, gespritzt with the steroids.
I would have loved your mother.
Oh, she was so cool.
Alrighty, we are going to take a break. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Welcome back. This is Deanna, and our guest today is Cynthia A. Sandor. She is the author of Through Innocent Eyes, Chosen Girls of the Hitler Youth. And although we've already addressed this, Kate wants to know what prompted her mother to tell her they will kill you when she first showed her the diary. And you said that you were really kind of trying to figure that out.
When I found the book and she said, don't show it to anyone because they will kill you, led me to ask, well, why? Maybe she saw something that was going on before her death. I don't know.
Right.
And I don't know. Maybe my mom saw. See, it was difficult for my mom to articulate certain things because she said to me once, she said, don't ever stop because you'll die. And I'm like, okay, it took me 20 years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
And I finally, I asked my aunt, I said, Dantinita, what did Mom mean by do not stop because you will die?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, your mother was running from the Russians that were shooting at us when we were little kids.
Oh,
okay?
My goodness.
And my uncle was 15 years old, and he stayed back to fight the Russians as they were coming into their little village and shooting everybody and killing everybody and destroying everything.
Right. Now, your grandmother, she was born in 1900?
Correct.
In Austria.
Yes.
And so she was 14 at the time that they assassinated
Archduke Ferdinand.
Right, and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
That was in August, I think, in 1914. And so then warfare broke out. So your mother, of course, heard the stories from her mother regarding what happened during World War I, which I think we have to know that history and the history of World War II to understand what is going on now.
I think that's a very good point that you bring up, because she grew up in deplorable conditions because of World War I, and it was very difficult. And she witnessed very drastic political, cultural, and socio-economic changes. And she learned about the new countries that were being formed and the new ideologies that were being replaced by the old. You know, she already had lived a lifetime, and she wished for her children not to experience the same thing that she had lived through.
Sure.
You know, and she did not like the idea of sending her children into the Hitler Youth because, you know, she personally did not believe in National Socialism, and because of that, the Gestapo came into the village and took her away, leaving the children alone for 3 days to fend for themselves. But when she returned, and I didn't know this until I was writing the book. I mean, my uncle told me this. When she returned, she was a very obedient servant to National Socialism. So in her eyes, she wanted her country to remain sovereign and independent. Mm-hmm.
But she was okay with your mother going into the Hitler Youth.
Yes, because she finally realized that the government was giving her daughter an opportunity that she could not afford to give to her own children. Now, mind you, all of her children were in the Hitler Youth. Okay.
She embraced National Socialism because she understood that this was a good thing.
Yes, afterwards, because of everything that everybody said, you know, there's always mixed messages. Okay?
Oh, sure.
Because when she saw how good Trudel, my mother, Gertrude, was in the Jungmädel, she saw what she was learning. And that reflected back onto the family again. My uncles, Uncle Hans, Uncle Emmerich, and my Aunt Antonita were all in the Hitler Youth. So was my mom. And then 2 years later, my Uncle Franz went into the boys' division, the DJ and then the HJ. As far as I know, the Landjahr Lager program has only been touched upon. The History Channel, the Discovery Channel, nobody has ever did a documentary film on the girls in Landjahr Lager.
Right.
And this is what the whole book is about. And This is my mother's story about a true story. It's a historical nonfiction biography about my mother growing up in Austria. The whole book is seen through her eyes.
Right.
That's why I entitled it Through Innocent Eyes.
We just want to make certain that this was a Hitler Youth program, and there's been an awful lot of lies not only about the Hitler Youth program, but about a lot of other things that happened in that country, in Austria and in Germany, that were not true. And so we just want to make certain that we cover that too.
Yeah. There was a program called Landjahr Lager, and that it was very good for the children, and that my mother enjoyed being there.
All right, Mark in Florida. Mark, welcome.
How are you doing?
I'm good, and you?
Good, thank you. I just want to say that I think it's great that a book like this is written, because there's so many unknown stories out there from everybody involved, not just in World War II, but any conflict or incident. That's not saying anybody's right or wrong. It's just saying that every individual has a story that needs to be heard, because we so often overlook those little aspects of history which complete the big picture. And
Indeed.
It's great that Cindy did this book.
I think so,
Thank
too.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you very much.
Thank you, and I hope you all have a good week.
Oh, you
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. And I agree with Mark. This is a wonderful thing that you've done, and you have certainly shed a lot of light on a lot of, not just your mother, but everybody that was with her and the influence that she had over you, with her neighbors, with her community, and she gained that, as you indicate, from being a part of this group.
Thank you. I like to read a particular passage out from the book, if I may. It's very short.
Okay, we just have a few seconds.
She wrote, "When the last day comes, you will show the Lord your God your hands. And those who work and toil hard enough, your hands may rest in heaven. And whoever has fine white hands must first show his heart to God."
Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, bless you.
Thank you. Guys, I feel very, very thankful and grateful and appreciative for being on your show, Deanna, and I feel like I like to open up the minds of people to let them know that there was a camp called Landjahr Lager for the girls.
All righty. And you're going to come back in a week, and we're going to talk about this some more. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, listeners. Have a wonderful day.